All right, all right. Let's get some stuff going here. Let me get this recording going. Good deal. So we got the conference call recorded here, just in case we get anyone that hops on the line. Let me type something here on the screen. It is 8:59. Yep. Okay. All right. All right. So here we go. We've been, this will be like the third week in a row. We're actually sticking with this. Um, for those of you who may have just joined us in the middle of this experiment we've been doing with going live, we have actually been switching to a format that is kind of similar to a radio show where I really just, when I do the podcast or the soapbox news updates that I put out periodically, those shows, those are really kind of more of a deeper dive into certain stories. But there are a lot of stories that I don't get a chance to even speak on because it requires so much research for me to go into any given area. So there's as a result, I miss a lot of different stories that pop up during the week. So I say, you know what, this will be a good way for me to do kind of like a radio show. They don't do necessarily a deep dive into every little thing. They just kind of talk about some things that's happening during the week. So I figured this would be a good time for me to address things and at the same time get a live going to where you are able to interact if you want or if you've got the time. So this is a good forum to be able to do that. As you can see, this is the first time you've actually seen my background here. I'm actually out in California. I'm in Roseville, California. I'm glad I'm out in Roseville, California. I was originally supposed to fly out and do a project out here in Hanford, I think it is, Hanford, California. If you Google Hanford, California, or those who know where Hanford, California is, you'll understand why I'm glad I don't have to go there. I wanted to actually at least have the option to be able to go out if I wanted to, and not have to hang around a job or hang around a hotel. But anyway, Roseville is a much nicer area. So I scribbled a few things down that I wanted to talk about this evening. As some of you already know, if you are on the East Coast, it's going to be a late night for you because East Coast, it's going to be a midnight broadcast for you. I doubt too many people are up at midnight, but if you're on the West Coast, then of course it's just 9 o'clock for you. Okay. So I've got a few things that I wanted to kind of touch on to let you know what's been going on. Let me figure out the best way for me to pull up this stuff. All right, first, before I get going here, I don't think anyone's on anyway, but just so you know the number and get in the habit of at least writing down the number. Our number is 267-807-9574, and the access code is 988-173#. That's 267-807-9574. Access code is 988-173#, or you're welcome to just chat in. So I'll look at the screen here periodically in case someone actually has any questions or comments or what have you. Okay. All right. So let me kind of look through. I got my notes on my phone. I'm going to figure out as I do this more, better place for me to put all my little notes and stuff here. But for now, I'm just putting some things here on my phone. So one of the things that I'm sure you've heard about this week is that there was an attack on Dave Chappelle on Tuesday. In the middle of him doing a set, some joker ran up on stage and actually tackled Dave Chappelle. And so this was really weird. Looks like the person's name was Isaiah Lee. He's 23 years old that tackled Dave Chappelle. And if you saw, I'm sure everyone saw this, but if you saw what that guy looked like, I mean, this was not a Chris Rock situation. That dude got beat down. When I say down, I mean, as Chris Tucker would say, you got knocked. You know what that was. Man, he got stomped. The best thing could have happened is for the police to show up and save his butt. But at any rate, after all of that, I mean, the guy gets on stage with a gun replica. I understand it's a gun replica, but still, if you actually seen a picture of this gun replica, it still had a knife on it. And so, interestingly enough, they're not charging him with a felony. I think he's being charged with 4 misdemeanors, and even to that, he pled not guilty. But it's really crazy because I mean, we all saw this coming. Let's be honest. Everyone saw this coming. It's not like I had to be a genius or anything like that to see it coming. Anyone who saw what happened with Will Smith and Chris Rock, we just knew it was open season. From this day forward, people who don't like something that you say on stage, someone's going to feel like they can walk up and slap you, feel like they can walk up and fight you, or whatever. And so, as you already know from the past few skits that Dave Chappelle has done, he's been going back and forth with the LGBTQ community. And I'm not really certain if this person, Isaiah Lee, I'm not certain if they're trans. I know Dave Chappelle made a joke about it being a trans man, but I don't know if he was or not. I do know that when I looked at the photograph of that guy, when they showed him on the gurney or whatever, I do know I saw fingernail polish on his fingers, so I don't know what that means. I know a lot of those punk rockers like to wear nail polish. It doesn't mean anything, but anyway, it's just crazy. Even 50 Cent chimed in, and he's like, "So, I mean, what's going to happen? Are we going to watch Dave Chappelle just get killed in front of us? What? I mean, what's going to happen? Nobody gets charged for this? It really is crazy." 50 Cent speaking out on this stuff. So I don't know. I don't know what's getting ready to happen, but I know one thing: security guards, you guys are going to have to be on your P's and Q's now. I mean, really on your P's and Q's. Um, I know with the Will Smith thing, I mean, they were non-responsive. I mean, they just, I guess, because you don't expect Will Smith to slap anybody, but I mean, I can't see how you allow anyone to just approach the stage if that's your job, security wise. So the fact that this guy could get up there, run up on stage, and tackle Dave Chappelle, I mean, I appreciate everyone for beating him down, but that could have very well been too late. So everyone's going to have to figure out how to step their game up on the security end. Because, man, to me, if that were me, I figured this person is way too close. So it's going to be a different game now. Comedy is going to be kind of dangerous right now. They're going to have to totally change this stuff around. The other thing, in regards to, or in the same vein of setting a precedent, the first Supreme Court draft leak just occurred. So this draft leak occurred, and so now everyone has gotten wind that the Supreme Court justices were going to vote against Roe v. Wade, and so just like or very similar to the situation with Will Smith and Chris Rock, the moment I saw it, the more I said, man, that's going to be setting a precedent. That means more people are going to be walking up on stage. Now, when I see this thing with the Supreme Court, I say, man, this is going to be setting a precedent, because already you can see the division between left and right. Former Attorney General Bill Barr, he already said whoever leaked this information, they're definitely going to be doing some jail time. So on the right, we're pretty consistent on finding who this person is that leaked the information. But on the left, they're not so gung-ho about finding a person. They'll probably even protect the person. There's also some talk about whoever this person was a hero, etc. The other thing that's really scary about this is now, I don't know if you saw this, but there are protesters who've gone to the justice's house, their personal residences, which that is against the law. I saw Kayleigh McEnany, who was the prior press secretary for Trump. She was saying this is against the law. It's not my opinion. I mean, she even put the Virginia statute out there. This is against the law for you to be protesting in front of the Supreme Court justice's house like that, their personal residences. How come nobody gets arrested during any of this stuff? It's really odd times that we're looking at right now. Really scary times. I was just telling my son the other day, I was asking him, because I know he's seen a couple of videos from my channel, but he hasn't watched like my entire channel, all of the videos. And I just asked him, had he watched a lot of them? He said, no, I've only watched a couple. And I told him, I said, kid, you really should. I mean, you really should. You're in the era now where all of this stuff is going to be, I mean, you don't know exactly what your dad talks about and why it's important. But you really best study up because, I mean, these kids coming up now, they've lost so many freedoms. And the sad part is they don't even know that they've lost freedoms. I mean, I remember before the pandemic, I used to see on occasion, and I don't know if you can think back this far, but I used to see on occasion that I would see some Asians that would walk around with masks on. And and it just makes sense now that coincidentally, many of the times when I would see people with masks, they just happen to be Asian. And I didn't think anything about it. I just thought some people are, hypochondriacs. They don't want to be sick, etc. But now that I think about it, I wonder how much of that stemmed from maybe something that they've picked up from communist China, or I don't know, or where there was mandates or whatever, and they just kind of brought that here, that same habit. But the point that I'm getting at about losing freedoms is, uh, children growing up now, masks are going to be a common thing, regardless of if they say the mandates are going. Masks are going to be just a common thing. You're still going to see people with masks long after you don't hear hardly anyone talking about COVID. There's just going to be people walking around with masks on, where they can't imagine an era like we grew up in, where it was like a mask. What the hell are you wearing a mask for? You couldn't even walk into a bank with a pair of sunglasses on without them telling you, hey, you need to take them sunglasses off. We need to see you, right? Let alone walk into a bank with a mask on. They wouldn't let you in the bank. Now it's a different world. It's a different world. So there's just so many things that are going to be changed, and I see it happening already. I mean, gee, it's just, anyway. I just told him to get himself educated because he needs to understand the history of the parties, not from what you hear on television. And I hate to say it, but not even what you learn in school. Even if it's college, you got to do your own research and you bring your own thinking to this. One of the things that I heard recently, Biden made some comments. He had nerve to say in his comments, he says, these MAGA supporters, he says the MAGA crowd is the most extreme political organization that's ever existed in history. Really? The most extreme organization in history? Oh my God. Oh God. I don't even know. It's hard to even know where to begin with that, because do I begin with the millions of dollars or billions of dollars of property damage from all of the buildings that they've burned down, from the windows that they've broken out during these BLM riots? I mean, nationwide. Do I go through the looting and all of the stealing and everything that they've done under the guise of BLM? Do I go through in Portland when they took over a police department and the shootings that happened there? Do I go to Georgia, right there where the Wendy's is, where Sequoia Turner, I think she was 12 years old, that got shot? Do I go through all? I mean, there's so many people have been shot and killed and looting and burning and all the stuff. Do we not talk about that? Does that have nothing to do with the Democrat Party whatsoever? Really? And that's in the past couple of years. I'm not even going to go back to the days of the KKK and talk about who that was the military arm for, right? The most extreme political organization in history, really? This this election this year, it needs to be an overwhelming. It needs to be such an overwhelming show of conservatives at the polls. It just needs to, because this dude has done so much damage, and it's not even 2 years. Isn't that crazy? That's not even 2 years. Not a full 2 years yet. And it feels like he's been in there forever. Everything is worse. How the hell do you come up with "Build Back Better" as a motif? How do you come up with that as your slogan when everything you've touched is worse? Don't get it. I don't get it at all, man. But that just killed me to say that the MAGA crowd is the worst or most extreme political organization in history. I'm like, this dude. Somebody just pull him to the side. Some other things that have happened going on here. Let me do this. I almost want to do, like, remember Rush Limbaugh back in the day when he used to do the little snapping of the paper? I used to like that noise. just him snapping the paper. I wish I had notes like that, but everything is digitized almost now. So I'm looking through my cell phone in case you're wondering what I got over here. I put all this stuff in my phone. But the other thing that happened is, in case you didn't know, remember Marjorie Taylor Greene actually got called into trial, right? The Democrats have been desperate. This is why it's so interesting to listen to Biden say the most extreme political organization in history. These guys have done so much to try to suppress anyone from running, to suppress anyone from, I mean, how many times have they tried to impeach Trump for stuff that was clearly Biden or stuff that was clearly related to Clinton's, right? And so here now, they're just so desperate to see if they can hang January 6th on Marjorie Taylor Greene. And just so you know, in case you didn't know, she got acquitted. So she can run and get reelected, etc. They probably made her more popular as a result. It's so crazy. That's probably, and here's the irony. There's probably, I suspect there's probably some people, conservatives, that aren't really that much of a fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene. But guess what? Because the left doesn't like her, you know, what's that phrase? The enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So just because the fact that the left just despises her, that probably makes conservatives who were like so-so about her make them want to put her in there even more, just to aggravate the left, just to troll them almost. It's a crazy time. It's a really crazy time, but she's got acquitted on that. What else do I want to mention? Oh, is my first educated guess coming true? What I mean by, it's actually not my first educated guess, my predictions, if you will. My very first educated guess that I did on the show was the one about Vernon Jones. I'm not going to go through that again. You've heard me rant about that. But my second one was recently in the Elon Musk Twitter takeover, where I was talking about several things that I think would come to pass at some point. One of them talking about how the left was going to get so aggravated with the fact that Elon Musk is owning Twitter that they're going to be calling him to Washington and doing all sorts of stuff to try to take his companies from him or whatever it is. But they're just determined to destroy that dude because it aggravates him so much. So I'm not saying it's happened yet. What I'm saying is several days after it's announced that the offer got accepted, the Twitter offer got accepted, all of a sudden Biden comes up with this disinformation person, this disinformation czar, right? What the heck that is. All that is a propaganda position. Notice where that person is appointed. They're appointed under the Department of Homeland Security. So you already know there's got to be an enforcement affiliated with this, right? Because Homeland Security, what you're really saying by putting that disinformation person czar under Homeland Security, you're saying that anything that they find just labeled as misinformation is now classified as a national security threat. Really? So your views now are classified as a national security threat? And I know everyone isn't a fan of Twitter. I know Twitter isn't the most popular social media app out of all of them. But I'm telling you, I see so much stuff on Twitter. I've seen this lady. Her name is Nina Jankowicz. Nina Jankowicz. I think I spelled her name before. But I've heard her talk about some of the things that she considered were like faux pas or infractions that are not the truth. I don't even know if I should be able to say them here, but some things that had to do with Kamala Harris, a bunch of those things. It was ridiculous stuff. And I'm like, so are you trying to say these are matters of national security? Is this the person really in charge of disinformation? And here's what's so crazy. Here's what's so crazy about that. Hold on, let me see where I am here. What's so crazy about that is that Biden himself, I don't know if you remember this, but Biden himself, during the heart of the pandemic, Biden himself gets on, I think, some kind of CNN town hall, and he tells the general public that you can't get COVID if you have the vaccines. Do you remember that? This was right after Facebook was just flagging conservatives left and right about fact check, fact check. Oh, needs more content, needs this, needs that. That's incorrect. We're going to pull that down. And here's the president of the United States gets on there and tells everyone that you can't catch COVID if you take his vaccines. That's how much they were lying to the general public. Flat out lying. But not only was he lying, but then you got Don Lemon standing right next to him and saying, co-signing it. I'm like, this is the reason why people don't understand why what Elon Musk is doing is such a huge deal. It's such a huge deal because free speech is so important. Because in the absence of free speech, what they're indirectly saying is that society, we have to accept these institutions now as truth. So you have to accept everything Joe Biden says as truth. You have to accept whatever CNN says as truth. You have to accept whatever the New York Post says as truth. I'm like, what the hell? And funny because the New York Post just posted something today. Where is it? The New York Post said, oh, the New York Post said, and this was about Elon Musk. The New York Post said, the New York Post said that Trump encouraged Elon Musk to buy Twitter. And this is so funny because they have the nerve of all places for them to post a lie. They posted on Twitter, which you know is Elon Musk. So how are you going to post something about Elon Musk on Twitter when you know Elon Musk is going to respond if it ain't true? And so right underneath them saying that Trump encouraged him to buy Twitter, Elon Musk says this is false. I have never communicated directly or indirectly with Trump. And he said something about Trump has no plans of actually coming on Twitter. He said that publicly himself, that he plans on staying with Truth Social, which I heard on television as well. Everyone knows Trump's been trying to get his own social media company going. Trump's not really the type, he's not really that kind of dude that likes to follow anybody. So I totally get that. I mean, I know a lot of people had plans or hopes that he would go to Twitter, but unless Truth Social just flat out fails, I don't see him coming to Twitter. But my point is that this is what the Biden administration is hoping to do, to silence everyone else and them be the voice of truth. In every dictatorship, there's always a propaganda arm. There is always a propaganda arm. The one that goes out there to silence everybody and then put out their, I've always hated this phrase. Oprah uses it a lot, their truth. I hate when people use that phrase. Tell them your truth. There's no such thing as your truth. There is the truth, but I want to share with the world my truth. No, there's the truth, but that's what the Biden administration wants to do. They want to tell the world their truth, which is a lie. It's not the truth, man. All right, so let me get on to something else here. So if you hadn't already heard, let me see, did I already talk about Democrats themselves? Okay, yeah, I talked about that. If you hadn't already heard, Jen Psaki is actually being replaced. So Jen Psaki is being replaced, the press secretary for Joe Biden, the Biden administration. She is actually being replaced right in time for my new show. Remember I said I was working on affirmative action? And nothing says affirmative action like Joe Biden. I mean, dude comes in, right, and telling you right from jump that he is going to be appointing a black woman. Just right out, I'm not going to give away the stuff that I cover in my show about affirmative action, but just giving you an idea of how this dude polarizes everybody right from the start. Doesn't matter what your credentials are, no matter how long you've maybe hoped for some kind of career to get elevated in government. He tells you right from the start, if you ain't a woman, if you ain't black, forget about it. That's what I'm picking, a black woman, right? And then maybe when you want to kind of give him credit and just say, okay, maybe he just did that once, he's not going to do this time and time again. He turns right after that and says, I got another black woman. I want to put her on the Supreme Court justice. I just want to put another black woman on there. And then you're like, gosh, that's two. And then today, the person who is replacing Jen Psaki, press secretary, Another black woman. Listen, I'm not, I don't want to come across the wrong way like you think I got something against black women. I'm not. I'm just saying this dude is totally, I mean, if the people were efficient, that would be one thing. But you got Kamala Harris sitting there talking about Lester Holt is asking her when she's going to go to the border when we had this border crisis, and she was like, "Oh, I've been to the border. I've been to the border." You're like, "No, no, you haven't." And then they sent her on this little wild goose chase about finding the root causes of why people are coming here. You know why people are coming here. You didn't have any problem understanding why people were coming here when Trump was in office, or you were very clear about why people were coming here. Only since Biden is president, now you're going to study the root causes, right? Instead of actually getting down to the brass tacks of eliminating that issue, right? Saying a little stuff about the passing of time. That was the dumbest. Go on YouTube and find the Kamala Harris talking about the passing of time and see how dumb that is. Or the time someone asked her to explain in layman's terms what's going on in the Ukraine. I mean, I'm just saying, if there's anything that shows you how unqualified this woman is, it it's just baffling that this is the person that he picks. All of this is really mystifying to me. I mean, if you think back to, I mean, we're years from it now, a few years from it now, but if you think back to the number of Democrats who was running as presidential candidates, there was over 30 some odd doggone Democrats. And for people to think that out of all of those Democrats, Biden is the one that you thought was the cream of the crop, Joe Biden, I don't understand. I really don't understand how people don't see through this. This is the biggest scam ever. All right. So what else I got going here? So other thing, pull up my phone. That's the thing about using my phone though, is that every once in a while my screen disappears. All right, so I talked about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I talked about this. Talked about the New York Post. Oh, I can't hardly even talk about this. The 2,000 Mules debut has actually happened. I saw at Mar-a-Lago, at Trump's Mar-a-Lago, that they had a big opening debut there. It looks like a lot of people came out. Charlie Kirk came out. Rob Smith came out there. A whole bunch of people I saw. Looks like I saw, was it Rudy Giuliani? Of course. It was just a lot of people that came out to that event. It's being talked about a lot. And now here's what's so crazy. Look how silent the media is on this. Let me back up for a second, because I can't say the E word on here probably, because then all of a sudden YouTube will be looking to try to figure out how to pull this video down. But let me tell you what's interesting about this movie, 2,000 Mules. If you haven't seen it, or if you hadn't gone to the website, 2,000 Mules, because I was watching one of Dinesh's podcasts, and what is interesting to me, and I haven't even seen the movie, so I can't speak 100% on it, but based on what the premise is, it's got to be pretty damning, because this is all based on geo tracking. And I hadn't really thought about it, but I've heard law enforcement talk about geo tracking before to solve crimes. Here's one scenario that you might have forgotten about with geo tracking. Do you remember when they arrested Jussie Smollett? And one of the things Jussie Smollett did is he claimed that someone had mailed him some letter. Remember, he claimed someone had mailed him some letter and it had some white powder in it and all this kind of stuff. Well, one of the things that I remember reading in an article is that they said, Jussie had better be careful, because one of the things that many criminals do, dummies, they do these crimes and they're so comfortable just doing these crimes and looking around and saying, okay, well, nobody saw me, so I'm good. But you know, the one thing that they forget, that their dumb butts have a cell phone in their pocket. And then especially when you're dealing with stuff like the US mail, they pick up mail at certain times. They have a window of time to where they know if it was full, if it was empty, what's going on there. So anyway, long story short, one of the things that they were talking about with the Jussie Smollett case is they said Jussie Smollett better get his story straight, because all the post office has to do, all the federal government does when they catch these people who mail anthrax and stuff in the mail like that, all they do is do geo tracking. They know uh, when that mail needed to be picked up, that certain window of time. And if they go over there and then all of a sudden do geo tracking on your phone and notice that your phone was in the same area after a certain period of time, they're like, yeah, the probability is extremely high that you mail that doggone letter that you're trying to claim someone else sent to you. Because what are you doing over here at this drop box, at this mailbox? The Sequoia Turner, I just mentioned Sequoia Turner, that girl that had gotten shot over by the Wendy's. When I listened to Dinesh D'Souza, one of the things he mentioned, because I didn't realize that they actually solved that case through geo tracking. Apparently, she had gotten shot in a van or something like that. And so what they did was I guess they knew the time of death or something like that. And so they did a geo tracking, and there was only like 4 or 5 cell phones that was in that area. And the GBI, which is like Georgia's version of the FBI, whoever did the geo tracking thing, they turned that stuff over to the GBI, and before you know it, they had an arrest. So this stuff is really powerful. A lot of people are getting caught not realizing their cell phone tells where they are. But that's the premise of this movie. Without me I can't say give it away because I don't know too much about it. But they did a little geo tracking leading up to the E word, that time of year when we put people in office, right? Can't believe I got to do this. But they saw several people who in the wee hours of the morning have got a whole lot of stuff to mail. A whole lot of stuff to mail. Well, I almost said one. But I don't know how anyone disputes this stuff. The people who are adamant that there was no sort of fraud whatsoever, I don't know how they dispute this stuff when you're looking at it on camera. I'm going to probably order that movie on DVD. I'll most likely download it, but I'm the type that likes to own that stuff and then watch it over and really know my P's and Q's about certain things when I'm talking to people. So I'll probably own that, just like I did with some other stuff of Dinesh D'Souza's. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that that geo tracking stuff is interesting in a scary way, and it's interesting in a powerful way in terms of being able to mitigate crime. So definitely looking into more about that. Unfortunately, I can see that being a double-edged sword, because while it's used right now for the most part for good, sooner or later with people like the Biden at the helm, that's the kind of stuff that's going to be used for things that we don't want. Unfortunately, I know it's coming. Yeah, I know it's coming. Nothing else really to say on that. Let me see. I think that was all I wanted to. Oh, I think no. The last thing I wanted to mention on here, and I don't have the footage. I should have downloaded like the video footage. But Sonny on The View. Let me see. Was that the last thing I was going to mention here? Oh, PolitiFact. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about the fact that the Biden administration just wants us to just classify everything that they say as truth. PolitiFact has already weighed in on Dinesh's movie, and they say that experts say that it's inherently false. And it's really ridiculous because it just shows how insulting the Democrat Party is to the American people. They really talk to us like we're dummies. Because, so you mean to tell me just because you use the word experts and say something is inherently false, so I'm not supposed to ask who the experts are, first of all. Second of all, I'm not supposed to ask which part of the movie do you think is false, because I'd like to know that you actually have some sort of retort or response back to what they said. Can you refute what they said? I'm not supposed to ask any of those questions. I'm just supposed to say, well, duh, you said expert said it, so you must be right. I mean, they just talk to American people like they're dumb. Like we're not supposed to ask any questions. It's a sad, sad state of affairs. I don't know where everyone's going with this, but I sure hope that between this between November coming up, I'm sure hoping that midterms really makes a big change and sends a strong message of some things that need to be different. Um, I'm trying to avoid that word. You know what I'm talking about. That's why I'm blanking out there for a minute. But let me see. The last thing I was going to say there is that Sunny from The View, what did she say? Oh, you'll have to just go pull it up on YouTube yourself because I only heard half of it. But Sunny made some comments on The View that she says she doesn't understand Black Republicans and Latino Republicans. She says she doesn't understand them. They've got, and I don't watch The View, so I barely know any of the staff that's on there. But apparently they've got a new Black lady on there who's a Republican, and I guess there's a Latino lady on there who's Republican. I don't know, but Sunny made some comment that she didn't understand Black and Latino Republicans. So I'm like, yeah, there's so much that can be said on the opposite side of that. I don't really understand anyone, regardless of any race. I ain't talking about races. She's talking about she don't understand Black Republicans or Latino Republicans. I'm not even talking about race at all. I don't understand people who don't get freedom. I don't. I don't understand people who would prefer socialism. I don't. I don't understand people who would prefer to be taxed into oblivion and not be able to keep the money that they earn. I don't. But that's me. That has nothing to do with the race. It has nothing to do with the gender. It has nothing to do with the religion. It's just, I don't think it's common sense. That's me. But I don't know what angle she came from because, like I said, I don't watch The View. Maybe I'll go back and try to find it on YouTube and get the full context of what she said. But this is going to be really interesting. But that's all I had. I don't always make these into an hour-long segment. Sometimes it's just half an hour or so. But you can watch it. I'll probably start editing some of these because one of these things I think I mentioned to you guys is that I got some new app now that's trying to make me a bit more efficient in terms of how I make these videos, and some of that efficiency has to do with video titling, hashtags, all sorts of different things, the description. So I don't want to be haphazard with how I put the information out. I want to be more efficient with how I put the information out. So I may actually download this and then maybe edit some stuff and then re-upload it. But anyway, if you ever have any questions or something like that, or respond, even if you're not able to be on live, then feel free to comment in the comments section later. We can still communicate that way. So be on the lookout pretty soon for the affirmative action show. That's the one that I'm putting out next. And then I got some interesting follow-up shows right after that. Well, you guys have an awesome night. I'll see you next Friday, but you'll see one of my shows before then. Talk to you soon.